3 months after I buried my husband, I watched him argue with a teenage cashier over a coupon for canned peaches. It was a Thursday afternoon at Hollis Market. The kind of February day when wet snow gathered in the seams of the parking lot and turned gray under tires. I had gone in for milk, bread, and the sleep tablets my doctor said I should stop pretending I did not need. I was standing near the end of aisle 9 when I heard his voice. "You can't advertise 2 for $4 and charge me $2.69 each." The words were ordinary. The pause before charge was not. Raymond Monroe used that pause whenever he believed someone was trying to cheat him out of less than $5. He had used it with cable companies, plumbers, waitresses who forgot the senior discount, and me when I bought the name brand coffee. My fingers tightened around the plastic basket. The man at the register wore a brown canvas jacket and a navy cap pulled low. His hair was darker than Ray's had been, but silver showed above his ears. His shoulders had narrowed. He had lost weight. Then he shifted onto his left foot and lifted his right heel. Ray had favored that knee since a church league softball game in 2004. He claimed the injury only bothered him before rain. I could predict storms by the way he climbed stairs. The cashier called for a manager. The man rubbed 2 fingers across his lower lip. Ray did that when he was trying not to raise his voice. My basket slipped from my hand. The egg carton hit first. A jar of pasta sauce rolled beneath the next register and struck a display of gum. People turned. The man glanced over his shoulder. For 1 second the store narrowed to his face. The scar behind his right ear was visible below the cap. A fishing hook had torn through the skin during the summer of 1998. I had driven him to urgent care while he pressed a dish towel to the blood and insisted he could pull it out with pliers. "Ray," I said. The cashier stopped scanning. The man looked at me without moving. "Raymond." I had pictured seeing him again every night since the fire. In some dreams he walked through our bedroom door smelling of smoke and aftershave. In others, I ran toward him down a hallway that kept stretching. None of those dreams had prepared me for the polite uncertainty on his face. "I'm sorry," he said. "Do I know you?" His voice was lower than I remembered, but it carried the same rough edge, the same measured tone he used with grieving families at the funeral home. I stepped around the broken eggs. "It's me." He looked toward the manager hurrying over in a red vest. "Mom, are you all right?" Mom, 39 years of marriage, and he called me Mom. "Ray, stop this." My voice bounced off the freezer doors. "Whatever you're doing, stop it." The manager slowed when she reached us. An elderly couple had stopped beside a display of crackers. A stock boy stood with a case of soup cans balanced against his hip. The man lowered his voice. "My name is Arthur Bell." "No, I think you've mistaken me for someone else. You are Raymond Charles Monroe." The manager's expression softened in the careful way I had come to hate since the funeral. It was the look people gave me when I said I still set 2 mugs beside the coffee maker. The man took a step back. I reached for his right hand. He pulled away, but not before I saw the pale crescent at the base of his thumb. 15 years earlier, a hot metal tray had slipped in the crematory. The burn had healed shiny and smooth. "You did that the night Mrs. Delaney was cremated," I said. His jaw tightened, only for a second. Then he looked at me as if I were a stranger who had wandered out without her medication. "I'm sorry you're having a difficult day." He knew exactly what he was doing. He was not surprised to see me. He was prepared. "I watched them bury you." He leaned close enough for me to smell peppermint on his breath. "You need to let go, Claire." He said my name so quietly no one else heard it. Then he straightened, turned to the cashier, paid for the peaches, and walked toward the doors. The manager touched my arm. "Would you like to sit down?" I pulled free and followed him. Cold air rushed in when the doors opened. Ray crossed the parking lot without looking back. He moved faster than a man his age should have, but the bad knee showed when he stepped off the curb. He reached a dark green SUV parked near the snowbank. I took out my phone and photographed the license plate. He loaded his groceries the way he always had. Cans and milk first, bread on top, eggs separate. Then he climbed behind the wheel. His face turned toward me through the windshield. The confusion was gone. He looked afraid. The SUV backed out. I stood between 2 rows of cars until a horn sounded behind me. My husband had died in a fire at Monroe and Daughter Funeral Home. The county had identified him through dental records, his wedding ring, and the engraved watch I gave him on our 25th anniversary. The casket had remained closed because Natalie said the burns were too severe. I had kissed the ring before the funeral director sealed it in a small evidence envelope. I had accepted casseroles from women who told me Ray had been a good man. I had apologized to his grave for every sharp word I had spoken during our marriage. Now he was driving away with 2 cans of discounted peaches. I reached my car and missed the ignition twice before the key went in. The green SUV turned toward the exit. I followed. Ray drove east out of Cedar Glen. I stayed 4 cars behind and kept one hand pressed against my stomach. Snowmelt hissed beneath the tires. The wipers dragged across a windshield that was not wet enough, making a dry rubber sound every few seconds. At first, I told myself I only wanted his address. That was not true. I wanted him to pull over, knock on my window, and explain how a mistake at the morgue had separated us. I wanted amnesia, witness protection, a head injury. Anything that allowed him to be both alive and innocent. He turned onto Route 14 and drove toward Bellwether, a river town 25 minutes away. Ray knew that road. He had told me he hated it because the bridge iced early. The SUV passed the bridge without slowing. Bellwether's downtown consisted of old brick storefronts, a hardware store, 2 bars, and a bakery with a striped awning. Ray turned onto Walden Street where narrow houses sat close to the sidewalk, beneath bare maple trees. He pulled into the driveway of a blue 2-story house. I drove past, circled the block, and parked half a street away. Ray carried the groceries toward the porch. Before he reached the steps, the front door opened and a teenage boy came out. He was tall and thin, with dark hair falling across his forehead. He took 2 bags from Ray and said something that made him laugh. The boy had Ray's smile, not just the shape of it. The timing. Ray always smiled a fraction before he laughed, as if enjoyment required approval. The boy did the same. A woman appeared in the doorway. She looked to be in her early 50s. Her auburn hair brushed the shoulders of a cream sweater. She wore no coat despite the cold. Ray kissed her. His palm rested against the side of her neck. He had not kissed me that way in years. The boy carried the groceries inside. The woman said something and tapped the front of Ray's jacket with 2 fingers. He gave her the patient smile he used when I reminded him to take his blood pressure pills. Then they disappeared into the house. I kept both hands on the steering wheel. 39 years began rearranging themselves. The embalming conferences in Columbus. The vendor meetings near Lake Erie. The emergency calls that came after dinner. The weekends he spent checking equipment at the crematory. Every absence had arrived with a reasonable explanation. I had accepted each one because marriage required trust, and because asking the same question twice made Ray sigh as if I had accused him of a crime. A delivery truck stopped at the curb. The driver left a package beside the door. I used my phone camera to zoom in, but the label blurred. An hour passed. The boy came outside carrying a basketball. Ray followed him across the street to a cracked driveway with a hoop above the garage. The boy shot. The ball struck the rim and bounced toward the road. Ray jogged after it, favoring his right knee. Natalie had begged him to come to her Saturday practices when she was 10. He attended once, spent the first half answering calls, then left because a family wanted to discuss flowers. I watched him rebound for another child. The pain did not arrive dramatically. My hands simply lost strength. My forehead touched the steering wheel, and I listened to my own breath fog the small space between my face and the horn. When I lifted my head, Ray had his arm around the boy's shoulders. The boy leaned into him without thinking. This was not a hiding place, it was a home. I photographed the house number, the SUV, and the mailbox. Arthur Bell had a utility bill, a driveway, and a son who expected him home with ice cream. My phone rang. Natalie. She had called every afternoon since the funeral. Sometimes she asked whether I had eaten. Sometimes she discussed the funeral home. She was 36, newly divorced, and the first woman in the Monroe family to earn a funeral director's license. Ray used to introduce her as the future of the business. I answered. Mom, where are you? In Bellwether. What are you doing there? I saw your father. Silence. Not surprised silence. What did you say? At Hollis Market. He calls himself Arthur Bell. Another pause. Then she laughed, too quickly. Mom, you scared me. For a second I thought you were serious. I followed him. Her voice sharpened. You what? He lives on Walden Street with a woman and a teenage boy. Do not go to that house. The words came before any question. I looked at the blue porch through the trees. Why not? Because you don't know those people. But you do? No. Natalie, I'm coming to get you. Text me where you are. You didn't ask if I was sure. Mom, you didn't ask what he looked like. You didn't ask whether I spoke to him. You told me not to approach the house. Her breathing changed. I heard a door close on her end. Please send your location. I ended the call. Across the street, Ray caught the basketball and looked toward my car. The ball slipped through his hands. The boy shouted something. Ray picked it up, guided him toward the house, and closed the front door behind them. 11 minutes later, Natalie's silver sedan turned onto Walden Street. She parked behind me and hurried to the passenger side. Her black funeral dress wrinkled beneath her coat. A strand of pearls rested against her throat. The pearls Ray gave her when she graduated from mortuary school. She climbed in. Show me. I handed her the phone. She scrolled through the photographs. Her face did not show disbelief. It showed calculation running out of time. The front door opened. Ray stepped onto the porch carrying a trash bag. Natalie made a sound in the back of her throat. You knew, I said. She covered her mouth. How long? Tears filled her eyes. How long, Natalie? Mom, please. Before or after the fire? Before. Ray walked to the garbage can beneath the porch light. My husband was alive. My daughter had helped keep him dead. Natalie asked me to follow her to the funeral home. I almost drove away instead. Then I realized I had spent my entire marriage following one Monroe or another into that building. Monroe and daughter stood at the corner of Ash and Linden, a white Victorian house with dark green shutters, and a ramp added along the east wall. Ray's grandfather bought it in 1947. The embalming room had once been a kitchen. The visitation chapel had once been a ballroom. The sign out front still carried fresh black ribbon. Raymond C. Monroe, 1958-10-2025. Natalie unlocked the side entrance and disarmed the alarm. The lobby smelled of lilies, furniture polish, and the sweet chemical trace that lived in the walls no matter how often they were painted. Ray's portrait hung beside the reception desk. He wore a charcoal suit and a blue tie. Below the frame, a brass plaque read "A Life of Surface." Take it down, I said. Natalie stared at me. Mom, take it down. She lifted the frame from the hook. Her fingers shook against the wood. She placed it face down on the desk. We went into Ray's office. His reading glasses remained beside the blotter. 3 dried markers stood in the mug Natalie had given him for Father's Day. A yellow sticky note on the monitor read "Callbank, Tuesday." I sat behind his desk. Natalie remained near the door. Start at the beginning. She folded her arms across her stomach. I found out about Diane 2 years ago. The woman in the blue house. Yes. And the boy? Ethan, Ray's son? She nodded. The clock on the wall clicked once, then again. How old? 16 next month. I pictured Ray at Christmas dinner 16 years earlier, carving turkey while Natalie announced she had been accepted to mortuary school. He had raised a glass to family. What did you do when you found out? I confronted him. And he said Diane had been a hospice nurse for one of our families. He said the affair ended years ago, but he stayed involved because of Ethan. You believed him. I wanted to. Her answer landed harder than a denial. Wanting to believe had kept our family running for years. When did you learn he was still living with them? Last spring. And you said nothing. He had me trapped by then. How? Natalie pulled out the chair across from me but did not sit. The business was failing. Funeral homes do not fail overnight. This one didn't. She opened a drawer and removed a folder thick with bank statements. Full-service funerals dropped almost 40% in 5 years. Families chose direct cremation. The national chain outside town advertised packages for less than our wholesale casket cost. Dad borrowed for the new crematory and the accessibility renovation. Then interest rates reset on the business line. I remembered Ray complaining about cheap cremation companies, destroying standards. I had heard pride in his voice, not panic. Natalie placed a covenant notice on the desk. The bank had warned that Monroe and daughter had failed its debt service ratio. The line of credit would not be renewed without additional collateral and a cash paydown. How much? I asked. $600,000 on the line. Another $410 on equipment and renovations. And you guaranteed some of it. She looked up. How did you know? Your name is on the notice. She sat. I had just finalized the divorce. I refinanced my house to pay Eric his share. I had $70,000 in legal bills and almost $100,000 left from school. If the bank called the guarantee, I would lose the house, and my license would be under review if the business collapsed with unpaid contracts. There was no greed in the way she said it. She rubbed the bare place on her ring finger and stared at the floor. Fear had built the first step. Pride and silence had built the rest. What did Ray do? He stopped sending some pre-need payments to the trustee. I knew enough about the business to understand the sentence. Customers who paid in advance were supposed to make checks to the bank trustee, or the insurance company funding the contract. The funeral home was not allowed to treat that money as operating cash. How? Some older clients still mailed checks here. Dad told the bookkeeper he would forward them. Instead, he deposited them into a separate account. For other contracts, he changed the remittance instructions and sent customers fake acknowledgement letters that looked like they came from the trustee. How much? At least $900,000 that I know of. The room tilted slightly. I placed both palms on the desk. People paid for their funerals and he spent the money. He used it for payroll, loan payments, and the crematory note at first. Natalie's lips pressed together. He also paid Diane's mortgage, Ethan's tuition, and consulting fees to companies connected to Arthur Bell. How long did you know? 10 months before the fire. You had a legal duty to report it. I know. Did you? No. Why? She looked around the office. Her eyes settled on the framed photographs of 4 generations of Monroes beside hearses and black limousines. Dad said an audit would close us before the state could sort anything out. 15 employees would lose their jobs. Hundreds of families would receive notices that the money they trusted us with was gone. The bank would take the building. Everyone in town would know I had failed less than 3 years after he made me managing director. You had not failed. I signed monthly reports. Did you know they were false? Not at first. And later? She rubbed her thumb against the table edge until the skin reddened. Later, I stopped asking questions I knew the answers to. I looked at her for a long time. What was the plan? A corporate life insurance policy. Ray had purchased a key person policy after the expansion. Monroe and daughter owned it and was the beneficiary. If Ray died, the company would receive $2.5 million to stabilize operations and buy out his interest. The policy would replace the missing money, I said. That was what he told me. Restore every client account, pay down the bank, keep the staff, and leave enough operating cash to survive. And he would disappear as Arthur Bell. Yes. What about me? Your personal policy was legitimate, $750,000. You were the beneficiary. He said you would have the house, retirement accounts, and enough income that you would never have to worry. The detail made his plan worse, not better. Ray had not forgotten me. He had assigned me a number. How was the fire staged? Natalie's face folded inward. Mom, tell me. She drew a breath that shook on the way out. Samuel Ortega died at County General that afternoon. He was transferred here under the county holding contract. Dad's next of kin had been located. You used his body. Dad moved him into the rear preparation room after closing. He switched the identification tag and put his watch and ring nearby. Dr. Kessler submitted altered dental records before the coroner requested an independent comparison. Did you start the fire? No. Did you know he was going to? Yes. Did you help disable the alarm? She stared at the carpet. Yes. The wall clock clicked again. You let me stand beside that casket. I thought the policy would pay in weeks. Dad said once the accounts were repaired, no customer would be harmed. I am not a customer. Her mouth trembled. I know. You told me not to see the body. It was badly burned. You held me at the funeral. She pressed both hands to her face. I was falling apart too. You knew he was alive. I knew what I had done. The distinction was ugly and honest. I stood. Natalie rose with me. Mom, please. The main claim has not paid. The insurer opened a fire investigation. We still have time to undo this. You cannot unburn a body. We can bring Dad back. We can report the financial shortage, cooperate, sell the business, repay what we can. Then why haven't you? Her eyes moved to Ray's empty chair. Because if he comes back before the policy decision, the claim becomes proof. If he stays dead, he says we can still fix the accounts. He is waiting for the money. Yes, and you are waiting with him. Her shoulders dropped. Yes, I walked into the lobby. The empty hook above the reception desk showed a clean square where Ray's portrait had protected the wallpaper from light. Natalie followed. What are you going to do? I put on my coat. For 22 years I had run the Cedar Glen Public Library. I knew how to locate property records, court filings, archived newspapers, corporate registrations, and the people who understood what those documents meant. Ray had spent our marriage calling it my little library job. I'm going home, I said. That was the last useful lie I told my daughter. I spent the night at Ray's desk at home. At 2 in the morning, I stopped trying to make the facts hurt less and began writing names on a legal pad. Arthur Bell, Deanne Mercer, Ethan Samuel Ortega, Alon Kessler, pre-need contracts, corporate life policy, bank covenant, Natalie. I wrote my daughter's name last. The list did not look like a family crisis. It looked like an index. At 8, I drove to the library. I had retired 18 months earlier, but my replacement, Marjorie Cole, still kept my staff key active because I volunteered twice a month in local history. She was at the circulation desk, sorting tax forms when I entered through the side door. "Claire?" She glanced at the clock. "You're early. I need the genealogy room." "Of course. And I need the door locked." Marjorie studied my face, then took the key ring from her belt. She had worked under me for 15 years. I hired her after she corrected 3 errors in the library's own application packet during her interview. She unlocked the room, turned on the microfilm reader, and set a pot of coffee beside the printer. "I'll be outside." I searched Arthur Bell first. The green SUV was registered to him at the Walden Street address. A limited liability company called Bell Advisory Services had been formed 7 years earlier. Its mailing address was a post office box in Bellwether. Arthur had no birth announcement, marriage license, high school yearbook entry, or property history before the company filing. He appeared fully grown, with a tax number and a consulting business. I searched Diane Mercer. She had worked as a hospice nurse until 2 years earlier. Her husband, Paul, died 17 years ago after a long illness. Their house had gone into foreclosure proceedings 6 months after his death, then emerged when the arrears were paid in one lump sum. The payment came the same month Bell Advisory Services was formed. I found Ethan's birth notice in the Bellwether Gazette. Mercer, Deanne, a son, Ethan Paul, born March 14. No father was listed. I printed the notice and turned to Samuel Ortega. The name produced dozens of results. Natalie had not given me an age. I called County General and asked for patient relations. "I'm trying to locate the family of a man who died there on November 6th. The woman asked whether I was a relative. "No." "Then, I can't release medical information." "I don't need medical information. I need to know which funeral home accepted his remains." "Are you calling from a funeral home?" I looked through the glass wall. Marjorie was shelving city directories with unusual concentration. "Yes," I said. "Monroe and daughter." The lie came out evenly. Maybe living beside dishonesty had taught me the mechanics. After 2 transfers, a records clerk confirmed that Samuel Luis Ortega had been released to Monroe and daughter at 4:12 p.m. on November 6th. The fire started shortly after 11 that night. "What happened to his personal effects?" I asked. "They would have been released to the authorized representative." "Was there a family contact?" "I can't provide a name." "Was there one?" The clerk paused. "Yes." My fingers went numb around the phone. Natalie said Samuel had no one. Then why was he treated as unclaimed? I did not say he was unclaimed. Who signed the release? "I've already given you more than I should. Have your legal department contact us." The line disconnected. I stared at the receiver. Ray had not taken an abandoned body that would otherwise have gone to a county cremation. He had taken a man from a family that knew he was dead. Marjorie entered without knocking. "You need to tell me what you're looking for. Find Samuel Luis Ortega on social media. He died November 6th at County General." She pulled a chair to the computer. Within minutes she found a public post by a woman named Isabel Ortega Cruz. Play share. "My uncle Samuel died in Ohio last week. The hospital says his body was released, but the funeral home cannot locate him. We are trying to bring him home to Texas." Below the text was a photograph of an older man in a Cleveland baseball cap. He stood beside a red pickup truck with one boot on the running board. His eyes narrowed when he smiled. A second post appeared 3 days later, seeking to says someone sign for him. It was not our family. A third included the telephone number for a missing remains complaint. I pushed back from the computer. Marjorie caught the rolling chair before it struck the cabinet. "Claire, what happened?" "My husband is alive." She did not laugh. I told her about the supermarket, the blue house, and Samuel. I left Natalie's roll out. Her omission sat between my ribs like a hard object. When I finished, Marjorie locked the outer door and pulled the blinds. "You need a lawyer." "I need documents that will still exist after Ray learns I am looking." "You need both." She was right. At home, I opened the estate folder Natalie had brought me after the funeral. I had signed forms while taking a sedative prescribed for 3 nights and renewed twice. Natalie had placed yellow tabs beside each signature line. One document transferred my 40% ownership interest in Monroe and Daughter to a management trust controlled by Natalie. The signature looked like mine until the final letter of Claire. The loop curved backward. Mine never did. A notary stamp belonged to Howard Pike, Ray's business attorney. Howard had attended the funeral. He held both my hands and said Ray had put his affairs in order because he loved me. A second document pledged my share of the building. As additional collateral for the business line of credit, the bank's acknowledgement page bore the same false signature. A third authorized Natalie to act for me in the insurance claim connected to Ray's death. That one was genuine. I remembered signing it. Grief had made me careless, but not responsible for what they concealed behind it. My phone buzzed. Mom, please call me. Dad wants to explain. I read the message twice. Then another arrived. Shays, there are things you don't understand about the business. I photographed every page in the estate folder and uploaded the images to a new cloud account. Then I called Lena Brooks. Lena had audited the library during my final year as director. She found a $42 discrepancy in a copier contract, 3 missing receipts from a children's program, and 6 years of pension underpayments by the city. Ray disliked her because she asked a question once and waited through silence. We met at a diner near the interstate. Lena arrived with a laptop and a yellow legal pad. At 57, she wore her silver hair close to her head and dressed as if every meeting might turn into sworn testimony. You said financial fraud, she began. My husband is alive. She took off her glasses. I attended his funeral. So did I. I told her everything. This time, I included Natalie. Saying my daughter's part aloud made my throat close. I drank water and continued. Lena filled 4 pages without interrupting. When I finished, she placed her pen beside the pad. Do you have copies of the forged documents? Yes. Has the corporate policy paid? No. Does Natalie know you contacted me? No, keep it that way. She referred me to Marcus Reed, an attorney who had spent 12 years prosecuting financial crimes before entering private practice. That evening, the 3 of us sat in Marcus's office overlooking the river. He read the transfer document twice and compared the signature to my driver's license. Did you authorize anyone to sign for you? No. Did you agree to pledge your ownership interest? No. Then we treat these as suspected forgeries, not as completed legal transfers. What happens to the insurance claim? We notify the carrier's special investigations unit that the insured is alive and that the claim rests on false records. The carrier will suspend review and preserve the file. Insurers also report credible suspected fraud to the state. Will Ray be told? Not by us. But he may learn the claim has stalled. Marcus tapped the document with Howard's stamp. We also send preservation notices to the funeral home, the bank, the trustee that holds the pre-need accounts, the insurer, and Mr. Pike. No one is required to hand us private records merely because we ask, but they will be on notice not to destroy relevant material. What about the police? They need to know about Samuel immediately. I wanted the full money trail first. Mrs. Monroe, a corpse was deliberately misidentified and burned. Evidence can disappear while we trace property records. I looked at Lena. She gave a small nod. Marcus was right. The next morning we met with Detective Carla Mendez from the county sheriff's office and an investigator from the Ohio Department of Insurance. Marcus did most of the talking. I showed the photographs from the supermarket, the house, and Isabel's public posts. Menz did not promise an arrest. She asked where each fact came from, who had first-hand knowledge, what documents I possessed, and whether I had entered the Bellwether property. No. Did you access any account that was not yours? No. Did you record your conversation with your daughter? No. She wrote that down. Do not trespass, open mail, guess passwords, or place a tracker on a vehicle. Let us obtain records through subpoenas and warrants. I understand. Do not confront your husband. I did not answer quickly enough. Mendez leaned forward. Mrs. Monroe, people who commit financial crimes are not necessarily violent. People who set fires to support those crimes have already crossed a different line. I thought of Ray's hand on my shoulder in the supermarket. All right, I said. She collected copies and asked us to remain quiet while investigators confirmed the hospital release, fire evidence, and Ray's identity. Outside the sheriff's office, wet snow had changed to rain. Lena opened her umbrella. You did the right thing. I watched water run along the curb into a clogged storm drain. I should have done it yesterday. You were buried yesterday. The sentence stopped me. Lena did not explain it. She did not need to. The investigation moved at the speed of paperwork for 9 days. No one was arrested. Detective Mendez called twice to clarify dates. The insurance investigator asked for the original authorization I had signed after the funeral. The state funeral board requested that I not contact employees who might become witnesses. I had expected sirens instead. I received document requests and reminders not to discuss the case. Lena worked with public records and information I was legally entitled to see as a shareholder whose ownership transfer was disputed. She found 5 companies connected to Ray, Arthur Bell, Natalie, and Howard Pike. Bell Advisory Services had billed Monroe and daughter $420,000 over 7 years. The invoices used phrases such as market development, family outreach, and operational consulting. Several months, the fees arrived within days of Diane's mortgage payment or Ethan's private school tuition. Another company owned a small cabin in western Pennsylvania. A third had purchased the green SUV. Ray had not stolen only to save the funeral home. He had built a second household in installments. That did not make his fear of bankruptcy false. It meant he had used a real crisis to excuse choices that served him first. On the 10th day, Natalie came to my house carrying chicken soup. She stood on the porch with wind pushing strands of hair across her face. I know you're home. I opened the door but did not invite her in. Dad says the insurer asked for more records. What records? Fire reports. Corporate financials. The original policy application. That sounds normal for a large claim involving a fire. She stared at me. You reported him. I said nothing. Mom, did you? Come inside. We sat at the kitchen table. She placed the soup between us. Condensation had gathered under the lid. Before we talk, I said, my attorney told me Ohio law generally allows a person to record a conversation she is part of. I am not recording this one. If we meet again, assume I may. Natalie's face drained. You have an attorney. Yes. Are the police involved? I am not discussing an investigation. She pressed both palms against the table. Do you understand what happens if the claim is denied? The bank can call the line. The funeral home closes. Every employee loses work. The state reviews every pre-need contract. I lose my house because of the guarantee. Those consequences started before I saw Ray. We can still repay people. With what? Sell the building. Sell the cabin. Dad says there are investments. Arthur Bell's investments? Her eyes flickered. You know about the companies. I know enough. She leaned back. Her coat remained buttoned as if she expected to leave quickly. I did not do this for a mansion or a yacht. I know. The answer startled her. I did it because the bank letter arrived the same week my divorce settlement was due. Eric's lawyer was threatening contempt. Payroll was short. Denise at the front desk had just told me her husband's cancer was back and she could not lose the health plan. Dad put the numbers in front of me and said one insurance payment would keep 15 families employed and restore every contract. You also wanted the funeral home. Her jaw tightened. Yes, I did. I spent 12 years learning the business. I worked holidays. I embalmed people I knew from school. I sat with parents whose children died. I wanted the name on the sign to mean I had built something, not just inherited it. That is not cartoon greed, Natalie. It is still greed when you decide other people may be lied to so you can keep it. She looked down. The refrigerator motor clicked on. Dad wants to meet with you, she said. No. He says he can explain the accounts. He had a chance in the supermarket. He panicked. He called me unstable in front of strangers. He is scared. So was I at his funeral. Natalie's eyes filled. He says you will be financially secure. Your personal policy is separate. He never intended to leave you with nothing. That is what he tells himself so he can sleep. He does not sleep. The small detail almost reached me. I opened the folder beside my chair and placed copies of the forged transfer and collateral pledge on the table. Natalie read the first page. Her lips parted. I did not sign this, neither did I. Dad said you agreed to put your shares into the management trust. Did you see me sign? No. Did Howard? The notary block says he did. Howard hugged me at the funeral and never mentioned it. She turned to the second document. He pledged your shares to the bank. He tried to. He said the bank needed only his interest. Ray lied to you too. Natalie pushed away from the table and stood. The chair legs scraped tile. No, I opened Isabel's post on my phone. Samuel's family was looking for him before the funeral. She read the screen without taking the phone. Dad showed me a county intake sheet. It said no next of kin. His niece had spoken to the hospital. He said no one had claimed him. Ray needed you to believe that burning Samuel was less serious than burning someone who had a family. Natalie gripped the back of the chair. I changed the tag. Yes. I put Dad's ring in the evidence bag. Yes. I signed the internal transfer log. Yes. Her knees buckled. She sat hard and covered her mouth. For the first time, I saw disgust in her face that was not directed at the risk to herself. Where is Ray planning to go? I asked. She shook her head. Natalie. I don't know. Does Arthur Bell have a passport? She looked toward the window. He has more than one. How many? I saw two. Where is he going? He talked about Costa Rica. When? After the insurance money clears. The claim is under review. He may decide to leave sooner. Her eyes snapped toward mine. Is it frozen? I let the silence answer. She stood again. He will run. Then tell the detective everything you know. I could go to prison. Yes. I'm your daughter. And Samuel was someone's uncle. She flinched as if I had raised a hand. I wanted to reach for her. I wanted to tell her I would fix it. That reflex had shaped my motherhood. It was also the reflex Ray counted on when he made her his partner. I love you, I said. I will pay for a lawyer who represents only you. I will sit behind you in court if you tell the truth. I will not lie for you. Her shoulders shook. What if telling the truth destroys everything? I looked at the forged signature on the table. Everything you are trying to protect is already gone. Natalie met with her own lawyer the next morning. By evening, she had signed a cooperation agreement that did not promise immunity. Detective Mendez made that point twice. The prosecutor would consider the timing and value of her assistance, but no one would erase what she had done. Natalie told them about the fire, the false internal records, the insurance claim, and Ray's aliases. She surrendered her phone and gave written consent for investigators to search her office and work laptop. She also gave them Diane's number. I called Diane before law enforcement did. Marcus advised against it. Mendez was firmer. She may be involved, the detective said. Contact could compromise surveillance or cause evidence to move. I listened, then Diane called me. Her number appeared on my screen at 6:43 the following morning. I answered from the edge of my bed. Is this Claire Monroe? Yes. This is Diane Mercer. Her voice sounded scraped raw. Arthur left his phone in the kitchen last night. A message from Natalie came through. She wrote, Mom knows about Samuel. Who is Samuel? I closed the bedroom door, though I lived alone. Where is Ray? He left before dawn. Do you know where? No, he said he had business at the funeral home. The funeral home is closed. He said there were records he needed. I called Mendez another phone while keeping Diane on the line. The detective instructed me to ask no leading questions and make no promises. Diane began speaking before I returned. Arthur told me you were dead. When? When we met. He said his wife Caroline died after a long illness. My name is Claire. He showed me photographs of a woman, not me, I know that now. Her breathing hitched. He told me his legal name was Raymond 2 days before the fire. He said Arthur was the name he used after a bankruptcy. He said a business partner died in the building, and newspapers confused them because his watch was found. And you believed him? I needed to. The answer was familiar. Why? I asked. My husband died owing more than the house was worth. I went back to hospice nights and left Ethan with neighbors. Then my mother had a stroke. Arthur paid the mortgage arrears and moved her into a care facility near me. He paid Ethan's school because the public program could not handle his dyslexia. Every time I asked where the money came from, he showed me an invoice or said consulting was good that quarter. Did you know he was married? Not until the fire. Did you know a body was buried under his name? A cup or glass struck a hard surface on her end. No, Samuel Ortega died at County General. Ray used his remains in the fire. No. Samuel's family spent weeks trying to locate him. No. The word broke on the second syllable. I waited. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. There is a locked case in my basement. Do not open it. I know the combination. Do not touch it. Police need to see it as Ray left it. Police? Yes. She began to breathe faster. Ethan is asleep upstairs. Can you take him somewhere without alerting Ray? My sister lives in Columbus. Call the detective whose number I'm going to give you. Follow her instructions. Do not tell Ray you spoke to me. Diane lowered her voice. He bought airline tickets. For when? Saturday. It was Tuesday. Where? San Jose. He said we were going for 2 weeks. Did he buy a return ticket? A long silence. I never checked. I heard footsteps and a door opening. Deanne whispered, "Ethan's awake." Before ending the call, she said, "Claire, I am sorry." I looked at Ray's empty side of the bed. "You are not the person who owes me the largest apology." Detective Mendez moved quickly after that. Officers met Diane away from the house. She and Ethan stayed with her sister while investigators sought warrants. Surveillance teams watched the Blue House, the funeral home, and a storage facility Diane identified outside Mill Creek. No one searched until a judge signed the warrants. Ray did not return to Walden Street. He used a prepaid phone to call Natalie twice and left no message. His green SUV appeared on a traffic camera near Cedar Glen shortly after dawn, then vanished. At 4 that afternoon, the funeral home alarm company reported an authorized code entry through the side door. The code belonged to Ray. Detective Mendez asked Natalie whether he might destroy records. "He keeps paper ledgers in the old arrangement room," she said. "If he knows the claim is frozen, yes." Officers surrounded the building before entering. Ray was gone. A rear window stood open. Ash floated in a metal waste bin in the alley where pages had been burned in small batches. Investigators recovered partial client names, account numbers, and invoices to Bell Advisory. Inside, someone had removed 2 hard drives from the accounting office. Ray had crossed another line, but he had also revealed what frightened him: the paper records. Late that night, Mendez called Natalie. "Your father contacted Diane." "What did he say?" "He left a voicemail. He thinks she took Ethan and the locked case." "She didn't take the case." "No, we did after the warrant was signed." "What was inside?" Mendez did not answer. "Law enforcement did not share evidence simply because we wanted to know." She asked whether Natalie believed Ray would contact me. "Yes," Natalie said. "He still thinks Mom can calm people down." I almost corrected her, then my phone rang. Caller Menz lifted one hand. I answered and put it on speak. "Claire." Ray's voice filled the room. I looked at Natalie. Her fingernails dug into her palm. "Where are you?" I asked. "I need to see you." "You saw me at Hollis Market." "I made a mistake." "You made several." He exhaled. "Diane is frightened. Natalie is not thinking clearly. You and I can still prevent this from becoming worse." "For whom?" "For everyone." There was traffic behind him, then the low chime of a gas station door. Menz wrote a note and slid it toward me. "Keep him talking. Do not agree to meet alone." "What happened to Samuel?" I asked. Silence. "Natalie should never have told you that name." "His family was searching for him." "The hospital paperwork showed no claimant at the time of release." "You knew there was a niece." "I knew someone called after the transfer." "And you continued." "The plan was already in motion." His voice remained calm. He sounded like a man explaining why a funeral service could not be moved after the newspaper deadline. "Come home," I said. "To what?" "To your name." "My name has been dragged through town for 30 years by people who expected me to solve every problem they brought through the door. You were paid to solve those problems." "Not enough. Never enough." "Do you know what direct cremation did to our revenue? Do you know what the bank wanted? I was borrowing every month to keep health insurance for people who called me greedy when package prices went up." I glanced at Mendez. Ray was not inventing the pressure. He was using it as a wall around his choices. "You also paid Diane's mortgage." "I took care of my son. And your daughter?" "I was protecting her future." "You put her name on false reports." "She was going to own a debt-free business." "You forged my signature." A pause. "Howard handled the documents." "Did Howard invent the idea?" "No." "Did I authorize him?" "You would have refused because you never understood the numbers." Natalie shut her eyes. There it was. Not a confession shaped for court, but the belief beneath every forged line. Ray did not think he had stolen my consent. He thought he had corrected it. "Where are you?" I asked again. "I'll tell you after you agree to meet." "With my attorney." "No lawyers." "Then no meeting." "Claire, listen to me. The personal policy pays you $750,000. The house is nearly clear. Your pension covers your expenses. I made sure you would be safe. You measured my grief and decided the price was fair. I decided you would survive." "And Samuel?" "He was dead." The room went still. Ray continued. "His body would have been cremated at county expense. I did not kill him. You erased him. I used an opportunity to save 15 jobs, hundreds of contracts, and 3 families. I said. "You forgot Samuel's." He said nothing. A truck horn sounded on his end, then he spoke more quietly. Meet me tomorrow at the funeral home. Bring Marcus Reed if you must. I will explain the accounts. If there is a way to surrender without losing every asset to legal fees and receivers, we should discuss it. Mendez wrote another note, agree. Law enforcement's consultation. 8 o'clock, I said, after the staff leaves. There is no staff, you ended that. He disconnected. Natalie stared at the dark phone screen. He called Samuel an opportunity. I put the phone down. Yes. He really believes it. Yes. That was what made Ray dangerous. He did not wake each morning choosing evil. He arranged facts until the choice he wanted looked necessary. Mael. The meeting took place the next evening under law enforcement control. No one called it a sting in front of me. Detective Mendez explained the boundaries. I would sit in Ray's office with Marcus. Natalie would be present because Ray expected her. Officers would monitor from adjacent rooms with our consent. I would wear no hidden transmitter. The office phone system would record through equipment installed under lawful authority, and Mendez would remain close enough to intervene. If he tells you to leave with him, you do not move, she said. I understand. If he reaches into a pocket, do not guess what he is doing. I understand. If you want the meeting ended, say, I need some air. Natalie stood beside the reception desk in a navy suit. Without her funeral home name badge, she looked younger. Are you ready? I asked. No, neither am I. She glanced toward the empty hook where Ray's portrait had hung. Do you hate me? The question had waited between us for 2 weeks. I hate what you did. That isn't the same answer. No. Will you forgive me? I don't know. Her chin trembled once. She nodded. At 7:58, the side door opened. Ray entered wearing the gray suit I once liked best. His hair had been washed clean of the dark dye. Silver showed fully at the temples. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm. He saw me and stopped. Claire. He spoke my name as if he had not denied it beneath supermarket lights. I sat behind his desk. Marcus occupied a chair near the wall. Natalie stood by the filing cabinet. Ray looked at Marcus. I asked to speak to my wife first. I am here as Mrs. Monroe's counsel, Marcus said. She decides who remains. Ray's mouth tightened. He sat across from me and placed the portfolio on his knees. You look well, he said. I looked worse at your funeral. He lowered his eyes. I never wanted you to suffer. You scheduled it. I planned an exit from a business crisis. You planned a death. For legal and financial purposes. Those purposes are why it was a crime. He glanced at Marcus, then back at me. The funeral home was 3 months from default. The bank had already refused to extend the line without collateral. If they called it, the building would sell at a loss. The trustee and state board would descend on the contracts. 15 employees would be unemployed before Easter. Those facts are real, I said. He leaned forward. Then you understand. No, I understand the pressure. I do not accept the choices. His fingers tightened around the portfolio. The policy would have repaired every account. If the insurer paid a false claim. The company paid premiums for 12 years. Premiums do not purchase permission to fake a death. Ray looked at Natalie. She has filled your head with legal phrases because she is frightened. Natalie's shoulders drew back. I told Mom what I did. You told her pieces. I told the police. His eyes fixed on her, the skin around his mouth whitened. You did what? I gave them my phone and computer. You stupid girl. Natalie flinched, then held still. I thought I was saving the business, she said. You were saving yourself. I was saving all of us. You forged Mom's signature. Howard prepared those documents. At your direction? I asked. Ray turned toward me. You owned 40% of a company whose liabilities you did not understand. We needed the collateral pledge. Did I sign it? You would not have, that was not my question. His left heel began to rise and fall against the carpet. No, he said. Did you authorize to notarize it as if I appeared before him? Ray looked at Marcus. This conversation is becoming accusatory. It began with a grave, I said. It was accusatory before you arrived. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the parking lot lamps cast white circles on wet pavement. I came because I am willing to return, he said. I will accept responsibility for the insurance filing. We can characterize the rest as bookkeeping failures during financial distress. Natalie relied on me. Diane knew nothing. Claire retains her personal policy and property. In exchange, the company enters receivership in an orderly way instead of being torn apart by criminal investigators. Marcus spoke from the wall. You are not in a position to negotiate charging decisions through your wife. I am speaking to my family. You stopped being her legal husband for practical purposes when you fabricated your death and assumed another identity, Marcus said. The marriage still exists, but it gives you no authority over her cooperation with investigators. Ray's face reddened. He turned back to me. Do you want Natalie in prison? No. Then help me control this. I cannot control the prosecutor. You can refuse to testify about the signatures. I will not. You can say you authorized them. I did not. You can save your daughter. Natalie stepped away from the cabinet. Stop asking her. Ray ignored her. Claire, you know what prison will do to Natalie. She has never spent a night in a cell. She will lose her license, her home, any chance of rebuilding. She chose to cooperate because you frightened her. No, Natalie said. Because Samuel had a family. Ray turned on her. Samuel was dead before he entered this building. You changed his identity. I did what the county would have done within weeks. The county would not have burned him under your name. The distinction matters emotionally, not economically. A small sound came from Natalie, half breath and half disbelief. I looked at Ray's hands. The crescent burn below his thumb caught the desk lamp. You spent your career telling families that the body mattered, I said. I told them what helped them through a service. So you never believed it? I believed dignity has a cost. Someone has to pay for the building, the staff, the vehicles, the refrigeration, the permits. People demand reverence and shop by price. His voice rose. Every year they wanted more for less, live streams, weekend services, custom videos. Then they complained about a $200 fee while I borrowed money to make payroll. He struck the portfolio against his palm. I was 66 years old, Claire. I had 2 households, a failing company, a daughter drowning in debt, a son who would never afford college, and a wife who believed retirement checks meant the numbers would somehow work. I saw one way out. There it was, not a cartoon villain's hunger, a frightened man's arithmetic, stripped of everyone else's right to refuse. You had bankruptcy, I said, and destroy the Monroe name. You had a sale. To the chain that underbid us, you had confession. To whom? The employees, the bank? You? Yes, he shook his head. You would have looked at me exactly as you are looking now. You mean I would have known you? The heel stopped moving. Ray's shoulders lowered. For a moment he looked tired enough to be honest. I loved you, he said. You loved that I trusted you. I left you money. You assigned me compensation. I made sure you would be safe. You decided I could survive being widowed, so you made me a widow. He looked down at the bracelet on my wrist. The one he gave me 2 days before the forged collateral document was dated. I did not know another way. You did. You did not like the cost to you. A knock sounded at the office door. Ray's head snapped up. No one had planned a knock. Detective Mendez opened the door with 2 officers behind her. Raymond Monroe, place the portfolio on the desk and keep your hands where we can see them. Ray looked at Marcus, then at Natalie. Finally, he looked at me. You brought them here. They were already looking for you. You set me up. No, I stopped helping you hide. He placed the portfolio on the desk. An officer moved behind him and secured his wrists. Ray did not resist. As they led him through the lobby, he saw his portrait lying face down beside the reception computer. He stopped walking. What happens to the funeral home? He asked. Not what happens to Diane. Not what happens to Ethan. Not what happens to Natalie or me. The building, the name, the object he had protected until nothing inside it remained worth saving. I don't know, I said. He nodded once. Then the officers took him into the rain. The arrests did not repair anything quickly. They produced boxes. Boxes from the funeral home. Boxes from the Blue House. Boxes from a storage unit outside Mill Creek. Investigators cataloged client files, false acknowledgement letters, blank identification tags, hard drives, cash, and 3 passports carrying Ray's photograph under different names. The state funeral board suspended the funeral home license and appointed other providers to handle active cases. The bank placed the property in receivership. Purchasers of pre-need contracts received letters explaining how to file claims through the trustee, insurer, or the state recovery process. Some families recovered most of what they had paid. Others did not. No courtroom sentence could make their contracts whole by itself. Alan Kessler pleaded guilty to altering dental records and cooperating in the false identification. Howard Pike admitted notarizing documents without my appearance and preparing records he knew were false. Both blamed Ray. Ray blamed both of them. Deanne gave investigators the financial records she had kept for household expenses. She had asked more questions than Ray claimed, but fewer than she wished she had. She moved with Ethan to Columbus and sold the Blue House. Part of the proceeds went toward restitution, after the court determined that stolen business funds had reduced the mortgage. Natalie surrendered her license before the board hearing. Her lawyer negotiated a plea that required full cooperation, restitution from the sale of her house, a short county jail term, and community control with electronic monitoring. The judge cited her lack of a prior record, the timing of her cooperation, and the records recovered because of her help. I did not call it mercy. I did not call it punishment. I sat behind her at sentencing and listened while she described changing Samuel's identification tag. Her voice failed once. She started the sentence again. Afterward, in the courthouse hallway, she reached for me, then stopped with her hand between us. I closed the distance. The hug lasted only a few seconds. It was not forgiveness. It was contact. Ray refused a plea until the insurer's records, the recovered ledgers, the office recording, and testimony from 3 co-defendants left his attorney with little room. He eventually admitted to the false death claim, the forged records, the diversion of pre-need payments, and the treatment of Samuel's remains. At his sentencing, he spoke for 20 minutes. He described collapsing revenue, expensive regulation, payroll, health insurance, and the bank's refusal to renew credit. Every number was accurate. Then Samuel's niece stood at the lectern. Isabel Ortega Cruz was shorter than I expected. She placed both hands on the wood and looked directly at Ray. My uncle was poor, she said. That did not make him available. Ray lowered his eyes. It was the only sentence that reached him. The court imposed a prison term long enough that Ray would be an old man if he served all of it. Restitution orders attached to the business assets, the cabin, the cash, and property purchased through his companies. Monroe and daughter was sold to another local funeral director. The new owner removed the name. I watched workers take down the gold letters on a windy April morning. Monroe came first, then the ampersand, then daughter. The pale outline left on the brick looked cleaner than the sign had. I sold the house on Willow Lane and moved into a condominium near the river. The first night I slept on a mattress between unopened boxes. At 2 a.m, I woke and listened. No footsteps crossed the hall. No phone vibrated on Ray's nightstand. The refrigerator clicked off and the rooms became quiet. For the first time, the silence did not belong to his absence. It belonged to me. Natalie and I began counseling. At first, she explained herself in sentences that started with Dad said, the bank wanted, and I thought months later, the sentences changed. I chose the business over Mom's right to know. I used Samuel's body as paperwork. I wanted the Monroe name badly enough to help destroy what it was supposed to mean. Those statements did not restore our relationship. They gave us material that was not false. A year after Samuel's remains were returned to Texas, Isabel and I created a small fund to help families transport relatives who died far from home. We kept the work narrow, verified cases, direct payments to licensed providers, 2 signatures on every disbursement. The first time the fund paid to send a construction worker from Ohio back to New Mexico, Isabel called me. He's going home, she said. I sat on my balcony with the river moving below. Yes, I said. He is. 18 months after Hollis Market. I returned on another Thursday afternoon. I had avoided the store without admitting it. There were other places to buy groceries, but each detour gave Ray one more decision in a life he no longer controlled. I walked past produce, bakery, and frozen foods until I reached Aisle 9. Canned peaches stood in neat rows beneath a yellow sign. 2 for $4. My pulse picked up. I waited until it slowed. A stock clerk crouched near the bottom shelf. Need help finding somethings? No, thank you. I took 2 cans. At checkout, the cashier scanned my groceries and asked for my rewards number. The screen displayed Claire Monroe. For years, the name had felt attached to a building, a husband, and a set of duties I had not chosen. I kept it because it was mine too. Outside, I loaded the car, milk and cans first. Bread on top. Peaches separate so they would not roll. The habit stopped me. Ray had packed groceries the same way. I considered moving everything. Then I closed the trunk. Not every useful thing he taught me had to be thrown away. Not every shared habit was proof that he still owned part of me. Natalie was meeting me for dinner. She worked in inventory at a medical supply warehouse now. She liked barcode scanners, sealed cartons, and knowing that the label matched what was inside. Isabel had mailed the fund's quarterly report. Marjorie had asked me to teach a library workshop on public records. My life had not returned to what it was. That was not a loss. Restoration would have put me back in the same house, beside the same desk, trusting the same answers. I started the car. At the parking lot exit, the light turned green. I drove forward without checking the mirror for a dark green SUV.